All right, Eric, now this. 2 Memphis police officers are on administrative leave pending the outcome of an internal investigation. And this is following the chaotic end to the No King's Day protest.
3 protesters from the No King's Day protest went before a judge today after being detained on Saturday afternoon. Action News 5's Imani Williams joins us live now with details. And we were there when those detained walked out of their first court hearing. Imani?
Yeah, like you said, Saturday was a chaos, but those 3 men that were charged and detained, along with local organizations, they were here right outside 201 Poplar. They standing together opposing city leadership and MPD's response to them protesting on Saturday. But there's like a back and forth between whether or not a permit was issued for the march portion of it all. The crowd outside of this Shelby County courtroom Monday echoed the crowd during Saturday's No King's Day protest. 6 people were detained Saturday after the protest turned into people being pepper sprayed. 3 of the 6 are facing multiple charges, including disorderly conduct, resisting detention, and obstructing passage. Adam Nelson, Reuben Birch, and David Ram were the 3 men charged. Monday, they appeared in court, but it ultimately was continued for 30 days. Saturday, the No King's Day protest brought thousands together across the country, but also right here in Memphis.
The response of our city government and of the police force was to harass and intimidate us and remind us that they are the ones in charge, not us.
Organizers of the protest say it was peaceful for hours.
This is what they do in the sight of 1,000 eyes.
Until Memphis police officers tried to stop the end of the march.
MPD officers spraying marshals with pepper spray. Had no idea what happened before that. And then right in front of me, they tackled a lady who was walking back into the park. It was absolutely just chaotic.
MPD says the permit submitted by Indivisible Memphis was issued for a, quote, community building rally and resource fair, and that no requests were made to march on city streets and that a permit was needed to march. MPD also says that officers told the protesters to move to the sidewalk for 40 minutes. Protesters say regardless of that, the actions by the police officers are concerning.
There was no threat to public safety. There was no justification for force. And yet, just feet from the end of a peaceful march, Memphis police escalated.
So we have requested through a Freedom of Information Act that permit and also a security plan submitted by Indivisible Memphis. We also have requested from MPD that security camera, body worn camera footage by those officers. We are waiting to hear back about that. Reporting live downtown, Imani Williams, Action News 5.